So like after this camp of health and dominance where he's been changing hearts and minds for everybody to like him again, I think Christian Fulton's just going to have another terrible season. I think Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. And you can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I'm joined as always by producer JT, who you can follow on social media at JT_Ruhnke. JT, happy Labor Day. Happy NFL Week 1. How are you?
I'm so great. We're finally here. We talked about it all off season. Like, we just can't wait. And now we're here, and it's great.
It's over. We did it.
Labor Day comes with, as me and you know, last night was our Draft-a-Palooza, basically, with our Hot Read Podcast league, which was a lot of fun. That was also me doing 6 straight hours of fantasy football drafts last night. So that was also a lot of fun. But, you know, we're back. I'm excited. Yeah,
we got our League of Record draft tonight, which we're going to do after the show. Today's show is a ton of fun. I've been looking forward to this one for a couple of weeks now. And we're going to get into it in a second, but we're doing the Take Purge today, which we will discuss. We'll explain here in a moment. We'll bring in our lovely guest here in a moment, but we got to take care of our fantastic sponsor, our new sponsor, BoomBozz Pizza, which is the company bringing today's show to you. They are our new sponsor, BoomBozz Pizza and Tap House. They have 3 Middle Tennessee locations. Our location is in Spring Hill, just a couple of minutes outside of downtown Nashville, down I-65. They're also in East Nashville and in Murfreesboro, as well as multiple stores in Kentucky and Indiana for our out-of-town listeners. These guys are not your typical sports and pizza bar. They are the only pizza company in the world, JT, to have won Best Pizza in America twice in the International Pizza Championships. Other awards to their name: winner of Best Vegetarian Pizza, winner of Best Gourmet Pizza, winner of Best International Pizza, winner of Best Non-Traditional Pizza, all at the International Pizza Expo in Las Vegas earlier last year. The place truly has it all. Great pizza, from plain pepperoni to the most unique and delicious gourmet pizza you have ever tried. Delicious wings and apps. A couple dozen beers on tap, including a variety of local brews. And it is a sports bar, so televisions all over the place, so you don't miss any of the action. JT, you and I are going to be doing our live shows every Thursday. Our Friday shows that we record live on Thursdays will be recorded live on location at the Spring Hill BoomBozz Pizza and Tap House every single Thursday, all season long, recording live just before Thursday Night Football kicks off. So we'll be doing the show live from there if you want to join us, and then hanging out every Thursday to watch Thursday Night Football at the bar with whoever stops by. So if you are in town, around town, in the Tennessee area, pick a Thursday. Come join us. Come hang out. Come watch a Thursday night game with us and catch the show live. We would love to see you there at BoomBozz Pizza and Tap House, our fantastic sponsor. All right, JT. Let's bring in our lovely guest today. We had her on a couple of weeks ago. And we said, we got to have her on again before the end of the offseason, before we get to the actual meat of football. And here she is for my money, the most fun, most entertaining offseason episode of the week. It's Michele Knezovic, formerly of 102.5, The Game here in Nashville. There she is, recently moved down to New Orleans, where the Titans are going to be headed this weekend to face off against the New Orleans Saints in Week 1. Michele, how are you? So great to have you back and on such a fun episode, too. How you doing?
Guys, it was a fabulous weekend. I mean, we all know Labor Day is also the official kickoff of college football. I know we had week 0, but living now in LSU country, let's just say the establishment I went to watch that game last night.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I'm unbiased. I'm not an LSU fan. We all know I'm a Kentucky fan.
Right.
Rough scene. But I can't deny that I might have enjoyed it just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The butt whooping that FSU gave
on their downfall just a little bit.
LSU, especially after Brian Kelly's comments, earlier this week. But football's back. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to reunite with some of my favorite Titans Media Corps people who are going to be down here in New Orleans this week. I know I'm going to see Joe Rexroad
of Joe
102.5 The Game in the morning show. So I'm excited. It's very fitting that they're here for Week 1, and we're going to have a fun episode today. I'm looking forward to it, guys.
Yeah, so I threw this idea at you before this weekend, I think. I was like, hey, are you down to come on, and are you down to play along with this ridiculous idea? So let me explain what we're doing today in the Take Purge. Before I do, if you're listening with us live, do me a quick favor. Make sure you can like, retweet, share this video in any way. We'd love to get as many live folks in here as possible. And then head on over to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page to be a part of the conversation. Find this live stream there on YouTube. Just search up Broadway Sports Media. You'll find this live stream. That's the comment section where you can be a part of the conversation, where we can see it on our end. And hey, while you're there, if you are not subscribed to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page, real quick, throw a subscribe on there. We'd love to boost the subscription numbers on that channel each and every day. So here's what we're doing today, guys. The Take Purge. Everyone is familiar with the movie, the franchise, The Purge. Very popular horror movie from the mid 2010s. Had many remakes and sequels that nobody asked for, but the basic concept really caught on. It was very popular there for a minute. And that's going to be the concept for today's show. We're going to fire off a handful of takes, Titans, about the AFC South, about the NFL at large, that maybe we don't 100% believe all of these takes, but we sure do think about them. And full credit to the Ringer Fantasy Football Show with our guys, Danny Kelly and Danny Heifetz and Craig Horlbeck. We 1000% are completely copying this concept from them. Like, full credit to them. They stole the concept from The Purge, and we're now stealing the concept of The Purge, the Take Purge, from them. Please don't be mad at us. We love y'all. You're our inspiration for today's show. The bit is simply too good to not expand beyond fantasy football. So we're going to be talking about some takes today that I don't know if either of you are familiar with. One of my favorite comedians is Louis C.K., and he has this bit called "Of Course, but Maybe." And that's kind of what today's show is. Like, in this bit, he talks about how, for example, peanut allergies, right? Of course, we need to be aware of who has peanut allergies. Of course, we need to segregate their food. We need to be cautious of how they're packaged in the factory. It's life or death. Of course, we have to be cautious of these things. We have to be conscientious, of course. But maybe if touching a nut kills you, you're supposed to die. Like, that's the bit. That's the bit. Sorry, JT. Of course not. Of course, right? That's the idea. Those are the kind of takes we're going to throw out today. Things about the NFL this year that we maybe have been hiding in the darkest recesses of our hearts, and we don't really want the world to know. But because it's the Take Purge, we're going to have a period of time today where none of our takes can be used against us. We are not going to be held personally or professionally responsible for what we say in the coming minutes. All of it is completely above board. Like, we cannot be held responsible for these things.
We're going off the rails.
We're going to cleanse our souls. And so as soon as that horn blows, which should be any minute here, we're going to get started. Oh no. Here we go.
You are one for the theatrics, aren't you?
Listen, never do anything halfway. Always give 100%. And we've officially begun the Take Purge. I'm scared I'm going to turn into a different person in here. I have no idea what I'm going to say. Let's start with the Titans. How about? And I know we all have a handful of Titans takes to share. Who wants to go first? Is anybody willing to take the first whack at one of these takes? Or should I start?
I think you should kick it off because you are so excited for this that
I'm so excited.
You should kick it off.
All right, I'll start with one that's maybe not my hottest take of the day, but it is one that I think is going to be a bummer for most Titans fans. So, like, after this camp of health and dominance where he's been changing hearts and minds for everybody to like him again, I think Christian Fulton's just going to have another terrible season. I think he's going to be super annoying and disappointing all year long. So here's the deal, right? He's only played 3 seasons, so it's a smaller sample size for sure. But he has played in 6, 13, and 11 games in his first 3 seasons, averaging just 10 games played per season, missing 7 or 8 games every single year. And yes, we've been hearing about how he did his offseason differently this year. He was off-site early on in the spring, doing his own thing in Florida with his trainers, working on a different body composition, body maintenance plan where he's working on really being available more, trying to get those soft tissue injuries to go away and quit ruining his seasons. And we've seen a lot of him in camp. He's been practicing hard and he's been dominant against some of the Titans' best receivers. He's really been showing off. And I think this team is excited about what they have in him this season. But I also know what their actions have dictated. And I know that this is a team that kept 6 cornerbacks on their initial 53-man roster. They now have 8 cornerbacks on their team. If you account Elijah Molden, who's kind of that flex safety cornerback. And if you add in their single waiver claim in Kendall Vildor out of Chicago, who's going to be playing that cornerback position, but they have like 7 or 8 guys lined up ready for triage at the cornerback position. And so I kind of think it's just going to be another year of disappointment in a contract year, and Christian Fulton isn't a Titan after this year. What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have been on that train from the moment he didn't come to OTAs. I automatically questioned it.
We did talk about this last time you were here, didn't we? I think we did.
I understand okay, you're going to do your own plan. Here, how about this? Just go work with Kevin Byard. Just go work with Kevin Byard. Pull Roger McCreary. Just go work with Kevin Byard. Sure. Kevin Byard, healthy all the time, never gets injured, knock on wood. Literally has like never missed a game in the NFL. Like, why don't you just stay here, go under his wing, work with him? Because Ethan, I completely agree. I mean, I understand the hype, the love, the wanting it to be true, but the writing on the wall and the history of it. I mean, even if he has a good year, I don't see him being on this team and getting a contract extension.
All right, there's the first one down. JT, do you have a take that you want to purge your soul of?
Yeah, so I would consider myself probably the only Christian Fulton optimist in the room here.
Okay.
As my take is that Christian Fulton has his best year to date, and not only that, he leads the league in interceptions.
Ooh.
Leads the league.
Yes.
Wow.
I think that part of yours is that the injury, I think for better or for worse, he did what he needed to do to make himself available. Hopefully, like you said, knock on wood, that he took the right steps. And I think he really is, for better or for worse, with his relationship with Titans head brass, he's going to throw a wrench in their plans and kind of have his best season to date, which would make it really hard for the Titans to consider re-signing him to another contract. But he's been playing with his hair on fire since he got to camp. I think there's no reason right now for me to believe that doesn't continue. And I think he gives the Titans something to really think about this upcoming offseason when he does, in fact, lead the league in interceptions. Now, that's just like that. That's with the theatrics of the take purge.
Right. And that's the point of the purge. You got to get it off your chest. I get it.
I think he could be the best corner on this team. And he could be kind of put the Titans secondary on the map as a secondary to be feared this season. Like, why couldn't he? You know,
if he stays healthy, I think he will. I mean, that's the question, right?
I think I'm like I said, I am the optimist in the room right now. I'm not letting all the off the field things kind of dictate his season.
Michelle, do you want to get your first take off your chest? What do you have for us?
Guys, I feel like we've slowly but surely ramped up the spiciness.
Okay.
And I was sitting on the couch earlier and I was, writing these takes out. And it's exactly what you said. Just maybe. Derrick Henry will rush for 2,000 this year.
Oh my goodness. Just turn the clock back.
That is spicy. That is hot.
Okay.
That is other people around the league who cover the league looking at me like, who the heck is this girl? What is she saying? But hear me out.
29-year-old Derrick Henry, what are you talking about?
Hear me out, right? Okay. Let me paint a beautiful picture for you too. And everybody listening and watching right now. Last year, coming off the foot injury. Well, let's go back to 2021, right? Okay. On pace to shatter his record. On pace to shatter it, right?
Yeah, like 2,200 yards or something.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Exactly.
Right.
Incredible. Misses, obviously, foot injury. We all know the story of how that happened. Okay, last year, the team had some significant offensive setbacks that impacted Derrick Henry that I actually don't think we've talked about as much. We've talked about more so how it impacted the passing game, how it impacted Ryan Tannehill, how it impacted Treylon Burks, all these things, right? You lose A.J. Brown. Treylon Burks is not what you think he's going to be. Your wide receiving core is extremely depleted. Your wide receiver room took a significant step back. Your offensive line took a significant step back the next year. Okay, so when you're a team coming to Tennessee, or you're getting ready to prep on Tennessee, you look at this team, you think, okay, what offensive threats do they have? Derrick Henry. Who else? Nope, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the offensive threat that they have. Yeah, period, sure. Point blank.
Sure.
Stack the box almost every single time. The production that Derrick Henry had last year as literally the only offensive threat the Titans had, the offensive line that he was rushing behind, the teams that would stack the box against him almost every single time, and he still was second in the NFL in rushing. I think he was just under 1,600 yards. And then when you combine that with receiving, he was just under 2,000, and also didn't play in a game against the Cowboys.
True.
So, okay, true. We're talking about, let's say he plays in that game. Let's say he gets 90, 80 yards, whatever it may be. Okay, well, he's then back in the 1,700 range. Okay, now let me paint a picture for you this year. Offensive line, still a question, but I could paint the picture that it could be good. I don't really know how that would look. Maybe Peter Skoronski's a stud. Maybe Andre Dillard figures it out at tackle. Maybe they all click and it works. And then the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, Tajay Spears. I almost said Tajay Sharp. Tajay Spears, Chiga Okonkwo, also Derrick Henry, new offensive coordinator, different, spreading out the offense. That is my first hot take. Derrick Henry.
I like it.
2K.
I like it. I mean, listen, we heard kind of a quiet quote from him the other day where he says,
"Oh, and the running back drama."
Yeah, he said he's going to be running for the running back position is what he's running for this season, which is, I think, a pissed off Derrick Henry is a scary sight to behold. I like it. I mean, listen, if he does it, I don't know. I need to go back and look. What is the oldest running back on that list for 2,000 yards? Like, who was the oldest guy to do it? I'm guessing some old head probably did it. JT, go find that for us if you don't mind. But I feel like I can pretty confidently say if he did it at 29 years old, he would be the oldest to ever do that, and also the only to do it twice. So he would be a Hall of Famer. I mean, yes. Yeah, no, it'd be a lock. It'd be a lock.
Barry Sanders at 29.
Okay, so he'd be matching Barry Sanders. Heard of that guy? Yeah, exactly. All right, let me get my next Titans take off my chest. We got a lot of takes to fly through here. Here's my next take. The Titans are going to start 2-6, and it's the two-parter here, which that's a bummer already, right? That's kind of hot as it is. And then after starting like 2-6, 2-7, maybe 2-8, who knows? There's then going to refuse to give a young quarterback the reins and look at the future. Like, they're just going to refuse to go into the correct team building mold that they should. And they're just going to claw their way to like 6 wins, piss everybody off for the last 2 months of the season, when they should obviously be giving run to one of their young quarterbacks and looking towards the future. And here's why. Look at their schedule. I hear a lot of this talk about how, the Titans, there's a chance that you see Will Levis by like week 10. It's possible. And while on the surface, I understand the thinking there, right? Like, if this team really stinks out of the gate, halfway through the season, they're 4 games back of the Jaguars and have lost both games to them or whatever it may be. There's reason to believe that that's when you as a team should look to the future and see what you've got going forward. Evaluate your guys for the future. The season is a wash. But I think internally this team is looking at their schedule, and everyone kind of agrees with the idea that their first 6 games of the season are the hardest stretch, right? You've got on the road at New Orleans, then the Chargers, the Browns, the Bengals, Baltimore, and Indianapolis is really the only easier game in that stretch, right? They're the only one that is probably where you might have the Titans favored in that game. But even that is a game on the road. After those first 6 games, and maybe arguably after their first 8, because then you come up back off the bye, you have Atlanta at home, and then you're at Pittsburgh, 2 teams that I think are sneaky going to be very good this year. the back half of the season for this team is kind of a red meat. Like, I think they're going to see the back half of the season as, if we can just survive the first 6 to 8 weeks of this year, if we can be 3-3, if we can be 4-4, if we can be 3-5, you get Tampa Bay, Carolina, Indianapolis, Houston twice, Jacksonville on the road and at home, which is a team that they play very tight every year, Seattle at home on a long road trip for them. And then Miami, which is a team that I think people are really high on, but that if Miami is the toughest opponent you have in the last 9 weeks there, I think that they're going to look at that as, we can go on a run. We can really run up the score. And I think Mike Vrabel is going to look at what the Jags did last year. Because what did the Jags do? They started 3-7, I think, and then messed around and won the division. Now it took the Titans falling apart physically and them having the best injury luck in the league. But I don't think Mike Vrabel is going to look at that and be at 4-4 or 3-5 and be like, we got to phone it in. We're 4 games back in the division. Like, there's no shot. He's going to think that they can do that very thing. So I just don't see a reality in which, unless they truly are like 1-9 and it's a disaster and unforeseen circumstances cause this team to just be a nightmare, like maybe number 1 overall pick for some reason, I don't see them moving on from Ryan Tannehill at all this season.
I agree. I mean, I agree with you. I don't ever see Mike Vrabel tanking ever. Like, I mean, that's just the type of, if there's a possibility, I mean, he's not going to put Will Levis and or Malik Willis in, even if you mentioned they're 2-6 and fans are, screaming for, we want to see the young guy. I mean, he hasn't even named who the backup is yet, right? I mean,
he won't. He doesn't want to. Yeah.
I don't see that happening. I mean, to be honest, unless it's in garbage time and Ryan Tannehill is healthy all year, I don't see either one of them. Doesn't matter what their record is.
Yeah. I think the only way you see them is if, and I don't even think this team's like, when was the last time this team was in a, we're up 30 in the fourth quarter situation? Been a while. Really the type of they intentionally play tight games, right? So unless Ryan Tannehill gets hurt, which is, it's football, it's a real possibility. He's an older player. I don't think we see him at all this year, no matter the circumstances, no matter the record, no matter how the season begins or ends. I don't think it happens. All right. Who's next? That's all I got for the Titans take. So we need to fire off the rest that y'all got before we move on here. What do we got?
I got one here. I like the idea of Derrick Henry running for 2,000, but as Music City Malik in the comments said, 2K is doable. However, there is a guy named Tyjae Spears who might cut into it, and that is my next. That is my next kind of take here. Is that Tyjae Spears has a very Tariq Cohen-esque season when that dynamic duo of him and David Montgomery we're on the top of the league, and Tyjae Spears this season is targeted 80 plus times and carries the ball more than 100 times.
Whoa!
In a stat line ranging around 550 rush yards and 5 touchdowns, and then around 50 to 60 receptions for 650 yards and 4 touchdowns. So truly a guy who I think, like, yes, is he kind of looking to be like right now, maybe the successor to Derrick Henry down the line, maybe, but also have we not just talked about like for the last like 4 months about how running backs kind of only have like 4 years now that you can get that, like it's worth paying them, right? So like I just don't believe that Tyjae Spears is just going to be used sparingly. We kind of saw before Dontrell Hilliard got hurt last year how they were really trying to use him as a receiver and kind of was the offense in a couple of those games. He led the team in
touchdowns through like 6 weeks. No one talks about it, but he led the team in touchdowns.
But I mean, if we just look at, we all know what Tyjae Spears did in college, but if you really look at it, the last 2 years he averaged 6.8 yards per carry. So like it, like when, and we saw it also, and he averaged basically around 8 or so averages or yards per target last season. So like it's not crazy to think that when the ball is given to this guy, he is not going to produce. We saw it already in the preseason. And so I think
didn't he average like 6 yards per carry in the preseason as well?
He led the league in rushing, and he didn't even play like most of the preseason games. So like I think that this team is really going to try to use Tyjae Spears, and if they do, like I don't think that's crazy to think that he can have about 1,000 yards from scrimmage.
Wow. Well, JT, to piggyback off that, one of mine. And being down here in New Orleans and working with Tulane, you know, the chatter around him, I mean, he's the real deal. I think there was a negative connotation towards him just when he got drafted because of the medicals and, you know, the worrying about the injury. Sure, I get a Titans fan. You've been traumatized these last couple of years when it comes to the health aspect of things. But my hot take is I have him leading the team in receiving touchdowns this year.
Okay.
I have
overall receivers this team has brought, I mean, new receivers, new receiving threats they have.
Yep. I think, you know, D-Hop, Traylon, sure, when you talk about receiving yards, yeah, they're going to be way over him. But I got Tyjae leading in receiving touchdowns. You mentioned Dontrell Hilliard. I think Tyjae is going to be such a threat in the red zone this year. And I also think he's going to be a big threat, like when they let him return the ball a couple times as well. So, that was kind of my hot take. And then I've got one more to wrap up the Titans thing. And this is just kind of like a fun one, but I don't know if you guys saw some of the tweeting on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it nowadays, regarding how Vols fans, you know,
I caught some wind of that. Yeah.
Yes. You know, thought that the Titans were like doing them a disservice or
spitting in their face, as I believe the phraseology. Right.
It is because of Will Levis. I am completely convinced. I am completely convinced that Vols fans will literally never root for him unless he becomes some Hall of Fame quarterback. Solely because he went to Kentucky. Matter.
I'm not sure that, you know what I mean. Like I think that they're diametrically opposed to him no matter what, unless he truly becomes like Mahomes. Will Levis, like unless he's undeniably a top 3 quarterback in the league, they're always going to find a reason to not like him. It's the college brain. I'm with you. And
even if Hendon Hooker like doesn't do anything in the NFL, they will still clamor for that. The fact that the Titans
they're not giving him a chance out there. Come on, got to give Hooker a chance. How do we know he's bad? They're not letting him play. Yeah, no, 100%.
It's not just a fun one.
I would just like to add to that. I will say that Austin Huff, who runs Corked Bats over there, wrote a fantastic article today.
Great op-ed.
A great op-ed.
Journalism is still alive and well.
Exactly. He did that today, but great article. However, Zach Lyons, friend of the show, he had a tweet in there that he also tweeted out when this was happening, I think either yesterday or 2 days ago on Twitter. Yeah. He said, since the move to Tennessee in 1997 by the Titans/Oilers, the University of Tennessee has had 110 players drafted. The Titans are tied for the second most UT players drafted by an NFL team in that time frame, with Kansas City having 8 and then Tennessee and New Orleans both drafting 6. For reference, LSU players drafted by the Saints since 1965 is just 10.
The Saints have to start pandering to LSU more. How dare they?
I mean,
not right
now. In the face of Louisiana State University.
They really are. Yeah. But I agree that is a good one. I have one more here. I'll just put this one is really not like super analytical. Can't really analyze it right now.
Just a
vibes take is that MPF doesn't even get the chance to resume his starter duties this season because Dylan Radins defies all odds of his injury and looks like a serviceable right tackle by
medical
week 3,
miracle,
leaving NPF to become the Titans swing tackle. And what I'm kind of using this, like what I'm gauging this by, is that the news came out that Chidobe Awuzie is looking to be good to go for the first week for the Bengals. He tore his ACL on Halloween, which is maybe like a month and a couple days.
It's like 5 weeks or something. Yeah,
5 weeks before Dylan Radins did the same thing. So, like, it's not crazy to me that they didn't leave him on the PUP list. He's back with the team here. It doesn't seem crazy to me that by week 3, if Chris Hubbard or any of these other guys aren't working out, Dylan Radins gets in there and looks serviceable enough to say, why would we put MPF, who of course, when he played in the final preseason game, he looked better than he did playing against the Bears. But also, he's not going to be with the team for 6 weeks. Like, if he does look good, I don't see an argument to why they would bring MPF and kind of ruin a thing. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know?
Yep.
So, like, could be a possibility.
Guys, I have a take I want to get off my chest. Let's move on to the AFC South here. And this is one for anybody that has followed this show since the spring when we did a lot of draft prep. Everybody knows Anthony Richardson. My truth, Anthony Richardson, QB1 from this draft. I think that he is the truth. I think that he is going to be fantastic. That's what I was saying in the spring, right?
Yeah.
I think in 5 years, we're going to look up and Anthony Richardson sucks. I think that the Colts are going to ruin him. I think that he has a lot of things working against him in the short to mid-term coming up here, and his development is going to be stunted, and what could have been is going to be ruined by the Indianapolis Colts. Let's talk through some of these details. Okay, here's the deal. Jonathan Taylor, safety net, gone for now at least, probably forever, right? Who's this man throwing to exactly? Okay, a very suspect wide receiver 1 in Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce, who I was super high on coming out, but he looked very concerning in the preseason. If you watched him at all, absolutely going to have to step it up. The Bills' sloppy seconds and Isaiah McKenzie. Josh Downs, who we liked a lot, but is a rookie and very small. And then that's it. 4 receivers currently on the roster. That's all they've got. That's all. It's those 4 guys and then 170 tight ends. And so you've got that aspect
with the best one, might I add, you being on IR right now in Jelani Woods is probably their best guy, and he's not there. So
yeah, so tough situation for a guy that already some would argue can't hit the broadside of a barn. And then who's blocking for this guy to run? Like, most athletic quarterback in the history of the NFL, in the history of quarterbacks, like, undeniably. But he's playing behind a has-been offensive line with a star guard who is one more bad season away from proving he's an all-time overpaid disaster. And this is a group that got Matt Ryan murdered on a regular basis last year. So, like, Anthony Richardson, he's in the most vital formation years of his football life, right? Years that he didn't get in college. Need I remind you, only had 13 starts. He had a cup of coffee at the college level, and he's now graduated into the trial by fire that is the NFL on a terrible team. It's going to ruin his developmental potential. Nature versus nurture with quarterbacks, a big deal. Your nature can be through the roof. Your potential can be insane. But if you aren't nurtured in the correct situation in the NFL, none of that matters, I don't think. I'm pro have to have the nurture for the nature to check out.
Sure.
And I don't think they have that here. And so I think it's a big deal, and he's going to suck. I think in 5 years, they're going to look up and he's going to have been ruined by the Colts.
Can I piggyback off that quick?
Sure.
Can we stop comparing him to Cam Newton? I mean, Cam Newton won a Heisman in college.
He did do that.
I mean, it is bizarre.
And then an NFL MVP, and then went to a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, like, it is absolutely bizarre to me that we're comparing the two. I mean, what Cam Newton did at Auburn, wins one of the best performances in college. We did not even talk about Anthony Richardson like that in college. He played for a mediocre Florida team last year, had some spurts of greatness, had some highlight reel footage, and then, of course, is an athletic freak. I'm not taking anything away from the guy. He absolutely killed the combine because he is just a freak athlete. But the comparison of the two and the amount of time people have used it, like, Cam Newton was a freak. He was a superstar. And Music City Malik in the chat, yes, he won a national championship too. Can't believe I forgot to even mention that. And then, of course, just balls out in the NFL. So why are we comparing the two? Let alone
it's kind of unfair. A little unfair.
Right, that is like such a disservice.
It's really not fair to Anthony.
It's like, what did this guy do in college? The team was like barely 500. I don't even know. No, Florida was like just 500. They lose to Vanderbilt. They lose to Kentucky. Like, teams that weren't good last year. Okay, he gets drafted, by the Colts. And now he's had a couple runs in the preseason. He has absolutely no weapons. He doesn't have a good offensive line. Yeah, he's playing in a crappy division. But look at the quarterback room the last couple of years. You also have a new head coach. And your owner is really all over the place. And I think it's pretty clear that the owner and the GM are not on the same page, because Chris Ballard was like, hey, listen, I never said we didn't want Jonathan Taylor, right? I mean, that is about to be a firestorm, and I give it about 5 weeks before Gardner Minshew's out there.
All right, AFC South, what else we got?
Well, now my turn to piggyback, because I'm going to put this Colts one out that I have right now, because basically everything you just said is probably what's going to go into mine, but I want to take a different spin on this. And I think it continues this Colts narrative quite nicely, because while you're right, and I do think that my take this season is that the Colts and Anthony Richardson struggle, leading to a 4-13 season. However, this is all part of Crazy Uncle Jim's plan, guys. He is throwing Anthony Richardson out there. He's got this mapped out.
Okay, all right.
4-13.
This is the craziest thing anyone's said so far.
Because
Uncle Jim has a plan of any kind.
Uncle Jim's got a plan, because 4-13 might get you the first overall pick. And what does Uncle Jim want to go get? The second coming of Marvin Harrison in his son, Marvin Harrison Jr. Bring him back to the Colts, baby. Just like they brought Jeff Saturday, get the boys back.
Run it back.
If Anthony, and like you said, if that doesn't work, guess what? Anthony Richardson, 5 years gone. Guess who might be coming into college then? Good old Manning boys. Bring him back. We're down the road. Bring Arch back. We are gonna relive the glory days. Crazy Uncle Jim's got this 5-year plan to bring Arch Manning and Marvin Harrison Jr. together. It's all under control, guys. It's all under control.
I have no notes. No,
there you go.
I think you're right. I don't think this is a hot take. I think it's just correct. You should say this in the real world when the purge is over, because I think it's accurate.
Yeah.
I have no notes. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Michelle, what do you got?
Are you ready for this one?
I'm ready. Hit me. 2
AFC South teams make the playoffs.
No. Okay. All right. I'm going to piggyback off of this later.
Guess which ones?
Oh no. Not the Titans and Jaguars?
No. It is.
Okay. I'm like, how hot is this take about to get? Holy cow.
I was like, don't worry, guys. Don't worry. No, I genuinely think they do. I think that you look at this Jags team, and I understand we talk so much about the AFC, and we talk about the quarterbacks in the AFC compared to the quarterbacks in the NFC. I mean, it really is night and day. It's varsity and it's JV, right? The NFC is pretty much wide open, and you look at the AFC, but I mean, when you look at the divisions and how many specific divisions are just stacked with these guys, I mean, not everybody can make it. And look at how good the Jets were last year, but they didn't have the quarterback. Okay, well, now they have the quarterback this year. What can they do? What does Miami look like? What do the Bills look like? What does Baltimore look like? What is, you have the Bengals, you have the Chiefs, you have the Titans, the Jags. I mean, like, there are so many dogs in the AFC, but
pretty good conference. Yeah.
I look at the AFC South. I look at the Jags. I think Trevor Lawrence makes another big step. I think that the national media is viewing it a little bit like, it's the Jags division to lose, which I don't agree with. I think that the Titans and the Jags are more so head to head than kind of the national media view of Trevor Lawrence is our spirit animal. He was a number 1 overall pick, yada, 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 all the things. Yeah. I think it's a little bit more neck and neck. And I think that the Tennessee Titans end up winning the South, but I think the Jags get in as a wild card.
I can't really comment too much on this because it's half of a take that I have later. So I agree.
Love it.
I think you're right. I think that a big part of this too is the fact that oftentimes a weaker division, your weakness is your strength in terms of getting teams in. It sometimes comes back to bite you in the playoffs when you haven't had to really go through that gauntlet during the season, and so those teams, you know what I mean.
Well, in addition to they're playing the NFC South, which is the worst division, I'd say in the
both
NFC.
Of the Souths are perceived as the worst. Yeah.
Plus, the Tennessee Titans haven't had this easy of a schedule. I mean, I understand they got the Chargers on there, they got the Bengals, the Ravens, but I mean, the last couple of years they've had to play the Chiefs and the Bills. Every year, and the Bengals.
Yeah.
So, and the Chargers last year. I mean, you look at this team. They haven't had a path like this in a couple of years now, and they've made upgrades.
I think it's a great take. I've got one here. I think the Texans are going to be far from the worst team in the AFC, and they're going to be buoyed by their top 10 defense. So here's the take. Everyone's talking about how the Cardinals may end up having the top 2 picks in 2024, which I think is lunacy. I think it's insane because, the Cardinals have the Texans first rounder next year, right? So a lot of talk about how, the Cardinals tank and they get a top 2 pick. They may have one too. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm here to tell you it is. And I see no path for this Texans team to be nearly that bad. And I think that their defense is going to buoy them. First of all, just put the defense aside for a second. Like we were talking about with the Titans and Jaguars, the division and their schedule are just too easy. Okay. They're the 9th easiest strength of schedule, according to Sharp Analytics, based on Vegas projected win totals this year. They're going to play a ton of winnable games. There is no tanking incentive for this team. So there's a lot of tank incentive for a lot of teams this year that need quarterbacks. Like we saw, in addition to Cade Mays and Caleb Williams, who are the perceived 1-2 punch at the top of the draft next year, Shadir Sanders entered the conversation this weekend. The player, the FSU quarterback whose name escapes me, he's certainly
Travis,
do you know it?
Jordan Travis.
Jordan Travis is going to be up there and talked about all year. You got Michael Penix up in Washington. People are talking a lot about
Joe Milton.
Joe Milton for the homers, for the Titans to spit in Tennessee's face again and not draft Joe Milton. All of these guys are going to create a lot of incentive for teams to tank this year and sell at the trade deadline and really try to bottom out. Texans don't have that. They just got their guy. They brought in their quarterback. They brought in their coach of the future. They kind of went all in sort of on last year's draft in trading up to get 2 top 5 picks and get Will Anderson Jr. into the mix as well. And so they're going to be trying to win now. The next couple of years is about winning, not about remaining middling and continuing to wait for the future. And then DeMeco Ryans, their new head coach, has never had a bad defense. Almost always a top 10 DVOA squad when he has been in charge of a defense. And if you look at their depth chart on the defensive side of the ball, it truly is not as bad as people are making it out to be. You've got a number of young players who I think are going to be poised to maybe have a breakout season. Jalen Petrie and Derek Stingley Jr. on the backside, I think, are going to be really, really nice this year and have a big year 1 to year 2 jump. Jimmy Ward, they bring in from San Francisco. Obviously, DeMeco knows what he's capable of. And then you've got guys up front. Will Anderson Jr. is going to be, I don't think anybody has any doubts that he's going to be a significant issue immediately. But then Sheldon Rankins, Jonathan Grenard, Malik Collins, Christian Harris, these guys make up a maybe lower ceiling, but pretty high floor pass rush unit that I think, Denzel Perriman as one of your middle linebackers you bring in from Vegas. Steven Nelson from Philadelphia, the cornerback position to kind of, rein in that position, make it a group that can sustain maybe more injuries than last year. You see a guy like Stingley Jr. go down or struggle, and they really didn't have anybody in the bullpen to go to. This year, they kind of have that both up front and in the secondary. I think their defense is going to be way better than people give it credit for, and that defensive unit's going to carry them to a lot more wins this year than people are expecting.
I like that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go into my next one right here, just kind of what you said, because my next one is that Will Anderson Jr. leads the entire league in sacks.
Oh,
and
spicy.
Defensive player of the year candidate as a rookie is what that sounds like.
It is what it sounds like. And to your point of how easy this division is, 6 of his games are going to be against the Indianapolis Colts. Not a great line. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Not a great line. And a very suspect Titans line. Is there a chance that he balls out and gets 1.5, 2 sacks per each game, and just out of 6 games he has 12 sacks to start off?
I don't think 10 in those 6 games is unreasonable.
It's
Truly,
it's not unreasonable that he has 10 sacks versus these teams. And so also cupcake schedule, also playing the NFC South, who has some very suspect lines as well.
Anybody see Carolina's offensive line in the preseason? Bryce Young getting murdered back there eventually. That's
the best line.
Maybe
the best
Anderson
line they
does
might
that.
play.
Maybe he's the one that breaks Mr. Young.
It's crazy to think that the best line they're going to play this year is the Falcons, who have a very good line, but then everyone else is probably bottom half of the league in offensive line. Maybe outside of the Bengals if they play them, because they play that division as well. But besides that, I don't know. Will Anderson has a really good shot to be a contender for Defensive Player of the Year in his rookie year.
I like that take. My only concern is if he is the only real threat as a pass rusher on that team, like you may see his ceiling lowered by the amount of double and triple teams he sees. You need another guy to kind of establish himself as somebody that needs paying attention to. But otherwise, I like the take. Michelle, you got one for us?
Are we ready to move to full NFL?
I have one more AFC South take.
Okay.
Do you, JT?
I do too. Yes.
Okay. Reel yours off, and then I'll go into mine. My third one may be my favorite one of all of these.
Yeah. Mine is now moving. I did one for each of the other teams here, and moving to the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. My take is that the Jags ball out and lead the league in total offense. However, the Jags are last in total defense. So we see kind of this Atlanta Falcons, Kyle Shanahan offense, where in the year where they went to the Super Bowl, they were putting up unprecedented numbers on their way to a Super Bowl, but the defense was really, really bad. Like nobody ever talks about
every single Sunday
or in the Super Bowl.
It wasn't being paid attention to because they were just scoring so much that the defense really didn't have to do that much because like they were scoring just way more than the other team could possibly put up with what they have. And you look at this core that they have in Trevor Lawrence, who I think like outside of the take Purge might have a good shot to be the MVP this year. You bring in Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk is living up to that contract. You have Zay Jones. You now have Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby, which I think people are not talking about enough of like how good that running back room is. And then Evan Ingram gets signed. Well, okay.
I'm about to take it in a different direction.
Okay,
sorry, don't mean to squash your take.
But outside of that, like their defense is very suspect. Like it did not improve from last year, and last year they already had like not a great defense, and they really didn't do anything to improve it this season by a landslide. Like there weren't any marginal improvements there. So like I don't think it's crazy that we see them ball
they
out.
Lost
but also
two of their top 3 pass rushers, and one of them is on the Tennessee Titans.
Ruhnke, is going to be. He didn't get the starting minutes. I think he probably should have done in Jacksonville, but I think he's about to have a revenge year. Well, and also in the chat too, I think it's really worthwhile mentioning by Pretty Boy in our chat. The Jags were by far the healthiest team. Like night and day, if you look at a chart, it's like the Jags and then it's like the Titans. Like they could not have been.
We would pull up for show and tell on this show every week, Michelle, the literal chart, and be like, look at this.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with this.
It's like bizarre the way they were just so healthy. And then obviously the Titans, it was just complete opposite. And it was still a battle till week 18 to see who won the division.
Can I take that one step further? I'm with you, JT, that defense is kind of disastrous, and like as pass rushers, you've got Josh Allen, and then you really need.
Or who was the guy who retired? He was
Josh Allen. Shout out Kentucky.
There was another guy. He signed for the Philadelphia Eagles for a little bit. I'm mixing the two up. No, Josh Allen is still there.
Regardless, Josh Allen he's still there. He's still young. He did not retire. He's their only like maybe plus pass rusher, unless you see like.
Trayvon Walker is there.
Fatukasi maybe has a bigger year. Yeah, you need Trayvon Walker to live up to that first overall pick potential, which I don't know if that's going to be the case. But here's my take. The Jaguars are actually a great quarterback coach combo, and then 3 really good skill position players, and the rest of their team kind of blows. Like, I think that this team is being propped, and this is kind of sort of what I've been saying in real life outside of the take Purge for a while, but I want to dial the argument to 100 because truly, like, I think we all agree. Trevor Lawrence, Dougie P, they rock for sure. Like, no argument there. Very good coach, at the very least, a very good coach combo, coach QB combo, and at their ceiling, I think a great duo. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Calvin Ridley, which we're all assuming he didn't forget how to play football. There's a possibility, but sure doesn't look like it. Christian Kirk, who's looked better. I think he's his role on this team. That contract is going to make more sense now that you bump him down a peg. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to be like this slot boy that you need to play on the outside because you paid him like an X, but he's not really an X. Like he can slice and dice from inside now or be that flanker. And then Evan Ingram, who had a resurgent year last year. I even struggled to call him I'm going to half say he's a a great skill position player and then maybe give half to Travis Etienne. Neither one I'm all in on. Ingram, we saw one really good year from, and like I think they're going to continue to utilize him in that way, but they were really hesitant to pay him. This is a player that we saw the rest of his career in the NFL not really live up to that potential. He's done it once. Let's see it twice before I really buy in. And then beyond that, this team's kind of mid. Like maybe they're really mid, and at worst, they kind of like totally blow. Like, is that a possibility? Let's look at their depth chart real quick, okay? Because people like to just lump in like all these skill position players: Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones. But let's pump the brakes a little bit on Zay Jones, okay? This is entering his 7th year in the NFL, and last year was his first season in his career where he had north of 550 yards receiving. I think he had in the ballpark of 8 last year. And that was partially just due to like, those were some like inflated NWI in the recent year numbers where they needed it because they didn't have a lot of receiver depth. And he was one of the only guys that they could trust to play on the outside. So Zay Jones, I don't think is this stud that needs to be lumped in with that group. I think he's fine. I think he's good. The offensive line, you've got some real like Walker Little at left tackle, Ben Barch, Luke Fortner, Brandon Scherf, who you bring in from Washington. Anton Harrison is a rookie first-round pick playing on the right tackle side of the ball. You're really putting a lot of faith in him as a young player that may really struggle to begin the season and kind of ruin. Like, it's nice to have a Lamborghini. You ever seen the picture of the Lamborghini parked in like the portico in the middle of nowhere, and it's like used all the time in sports analogies? Like, that might be the Jacksonville Jaguars offense in terms of skill position players, but it's parked behind this offensive line that is this like lean-to trailer park trash.
Game starts at the sticks.
Yeah, like that may be an issue for them. Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby could make a nice duo, but wouldn't shock me entirely if they were just fine. And then again, the defense is pretty bad. So like, I kind of think this team's propped up by, and I get it, it's the NFL in 2023. It's about the sexy, shiny thing. That offense, that coach, QB, skill position players, those are 1, 2, 3 in the interest of I think a lot of the national media and certainly a lot of fans, and they check those boxes. But beyond that, the infrastructure of this team, the meat and potatoes of this team, kind of concerning. Maybe they kind of suck outside of those top 3 categories.
No, I honestly, that's one thing that Take Easton is I could potentially see that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the flashy things. Oh, look what we got here. Look what we got there. What we got here. And then it's like, oh no, week 1, week 2.
You've got like 18 other players that are starters that you have to not like. It's a team sport. They need to not suck for a team to be pretty good. So let's move on to the NFL takes here. And these are just takes that are not AFC South or Titan specific that we wanted to get off our chest and purge our souls of during the NFL take purge here. Michelle, do you want to start us off? What is your first NFL take for us this afternoon?
I have got some spicy ones coming our way right now.
Mind out of my skull. Let me hear it.
The Bengals will be the 3rd best team in their division and miss the playoffs.
Love.
Yep.
And JT's a Bengals fan, so I need all the details on this one. Talk me through it.
Listen, I look at that division. First off, obviously you got the Bengals. You have the Steelers, who Kenny Pickett's been turning some heads during training camp. I think that, what we saw from him in the back half of the season last year when he officially was the starter, the additions that they made in the draft this year, and a Mike Tomlin team you can never count out. I mean, even in the transition year when first off, when Ben was hanging on by barely a thread, right? I mean, the
corpse of Ben Roethlisberger
still won games, right? And then you transition. It was Mitch Trubisky-ish, Kenny Pickett. But, I mean, this team at its core, we just talked about with the Jags. The Jags have a lot of flashy players. Well, the Steelers don't have a lot of flashy players.
They're the opposite, right? Yes.
What they do have is a solid offensive line and a solid D-line. And that's where the game starts. And then if you have that, you don't have to have as many flashy players. And in addition, I mean, you just look at Mike Tomlin, like he's always had successful teams. I look at the Ravens. I think Lamar Jackson is about to have okay, I heard all this smack talking about me. Why I shouldn't have a contract? Why, I'm not a great quarterback. You get OBJ. They drafted Zay
Flowers.
Zay Flowers. They drafted Zay Flowers. I mean, that team was a insane play away from beating the Bengals in the playoffs with a backup quarterback. And I mean, right? Like, they should have won that game. That was
a Pro Bowl backup quarterback, if we're being technical, but yes.
Right. So I could see the Ravens or the Steelers winning that division. And I mean, I'll even throw in the Browns in there, as much as I don't even want to give that organization any flowers right now. Maybe Deshaun Watson shows us what we've seen from him in the past. When you look at the Browns roster, they have a pretty good roster. You had Nick Chubb in there. I mean, their roster, we talked about before they added Deshaun Watson, talked about, one of the top to bottom strongest rosters like in the NFL, in the AFC, other than that quarterback position before they got Deshaun Watson.
If Deshaun Watson magically becomes old Deshaun Watson, they're immediately a Super Bowl contender. Like, I don't see there's no way around it. Now, that's a big if, right? It's a huge if. I don't think we're all expecting that, but if it happens, it's immediate.
Yeah. So I look at the Bengals and I understand the Joe Burrow, the T. Higgins, the Jamar Chase, but they are in one of the toughest divisions in the AFC with some sneaky good teams in there and good organizations in there.
I'd say the toughest division in the league. I love this take. I told JT the other day, like, as I'm trying to get my official predictions down for the year, like who's going to win each division, who's the playoff teams. Every single day I think about it, I swear I change my mind on who wins that division. I'm just flipping a coin at this point. I think all four teams absolutely have the ceiling to win. And I think it wouldn't shock me if the best team in that division is 10-7 and the worst team is 8-9. Like, that would not surprise me at all. And the margins are going to be so razor thin. I don't think that's a crazy take at all.
Yeah, so I'm gonna come in here with one.
Yeah, thinks it's a crazy take.
Well, not exactly. I'm just, as I said earlier, I'm choosing the side of optimism here. I'm seeing the good side of things, but this is probably the craziest take I have on this board. I have currently in this take Purge all four AFC North teams making the playoffs.
Okay, I love it.
For a lot of
all three AFC wildcard spots go to the AFC North.
And this is something I tweeted outside of the take Purge. Like, it's really hard for me not to see that three of these four AFC divisions, like, it is not that crazy to me to see them cannibalize each other, and it's not crazy that the AFC West, the AFC North, and the AFC East all go 1-1 against each other, and then it's just duking it out between each other for these kind of tiebreakers in playoff implication. Like, it really is kind of crazy to me that, like, not all these teams are so, like, have their reasons to be playoff contenders, but obviously it's the AFC. Everyone is crazy, which is why I think out of, like, the other teams that have wild card, like, yes, I'm putting all four AFC East or AFC North teams above the Dolphins, above the Jets, above the Chargers. Like, because I like all the things you said about Kenny Pickett and that Mike Tomlin team. The Ravens, Lamar's revenge tour, adding OBJ, who is not as good as he was, but anything is better than Rashad Bateman, who can't stay healthy for more than like 2 plays. And Todd Monken as your offensive coordinator. And then, to your point, this may be the biggest year for the Cleveland Browns in this century right now. The eggs are in one basket. Literally, the money is in Deshaun Watson's pocket. This is the year that if it works, the money is worth it. If not, it's gonna just
somebody's head has to roll. There's no way this. It has to.
If it doesn't, they're the bit. They will be the bit of all NFL jokes. JT, your take reminds me of last year. I said that, and I'm laughing. I said it about the AFC West. I mean, you think, right? It was Russell Wilson goes to the Broncos.
Yes.
The Raiders with Devontae Adams, obviously the Chiefs, the Chargers. That I said we could see every AFC West team in the playoffs this year, and I think back now, and it's just like, oh, that's funny.
Well, and we all did that about the NFC West the year before too. Like, every year there's one of those divisions, and that's probably what this division is this year. Doing the mental math, it's so hard because you, again, as a division, you kind of cannibalize each other. So in order to have that happen, you need everybody to go 3-3 in the division, basically, right? And then you have 11 games outside of your division each year. you need to win at least 7 of those 11 to get to 10 and 7 for everybody. And in the AFC this year, I would argue you probably need to win 8. Like I think 10 is not 10 in the AFC this year is not a lock you get into the playoffs.
However, the AFC North is playing the AFC South, so like there are some winnable games there between the Texans and the Colts.
Sure.
The Titans will give them a fair fight, and the Jags will give them a fair fight. But like those are games that like maybe I'm still leaning towards all of the AFC North teams. Like it's winnable, and just like. I think there's more questions about the Chargers and about even you can go to the Bills and the Dolphins and the Jets than there is about any 4 of these teams. Like the biggest question in this entire division is what is Deshaun Watson? But outside of that, like I like the other 3 teams a lot.
I got a couple takes I want to get off my chest, and we're running long on time. So I'm going to just mention this one because you've already said half the take a second ago, Michelle. And I'm going to take it a step further. And then I'll get into the one I really want to talk about here. You mentioned you think the AFC South has 2 playoff teams. I think that the 2 worst divisions in the league, the AFC and the NFC South, both have 2 playoff teams. I think that roughly 30% of the playoff pool come January is going to be made up of the 2 worst divisions in the league or 2 worst perceived divisions. So you look at the strength of schedule again. You've got Atlanta and New Orleans. They have the 2 easiest strengths of schedule based on Vegas record prediction. Wins the season. They have the 2 easiest strength of schedules in the league by a country mile. Like it's not close. The Titans are 13th in that strength of schedule. Jaguars right in the middle at 15th. But I think both of those teams have extenuating circumstances we've talked about where they've got a lot of winnable games in there. And, they do play the Colts and the Texans twice each. They do play the NFC South where you've got a lot of winnable games. And then you look at how these 2 conferences would get to that. With the AFC, it's as simple as we've been talking about. The conferences are going to cannibalize each other. Like you look at the talent in the AFC North, of course. The West, the Raiders and the Broncos not scaring a ton of people, but the Chargers always give the Chiefs a run for their money. Those 2 teams go after it. I think people are expecting a lot of things from that team and from Justin Herbert this year. You've got the same situation, like people aren't wanting to quite give it credence yet because we got so burned by the Broncos last year. But if anyone's going to fix that situation, Mr. Offense, Sean Payton, is kind of the guy for the job, right? So is anyone going to be blown away if Sean Payton is a miracle worker and gets them to competent and annoying at the very least and take some division wins away from those top teams? And then the AFC East, where you've got the Bills and the Jets and the Dolphins all absolutely clobbering each other. I think that is a very decent chance that with these 2 conferences, and then in the NFC, like somebody has to make the playoffs, right? We talk about how weak this conference is. How hard do you expect it really to be to get into the NFC playoffs this year to get a wild card spot? Would you be shocked if a 9-win team is getting, or a couple 9-win teams are getting a wild card spot over there? I don't think you would. So I think the weakness will be their strengths for these two divisions in the AFC South and AFC. The NFC and AFC South will both have 2 playoff teams each. But here's my take that I really want to get into and hear y'all's opinion on. I think the 49ers are going to bench Brock Purdy by week 10 and they're going to miss the playoffs. I think the 49ers are going to kind of stink this year. I think they're going to be pretty bad. Here's the take. Kyle Shanahan, he either goes over or way under his win total each and every year. There is no such thing as mediocrity for his teams. He's won 13 games twice and won the division. He's got 1 year in which he won 10 games and was the wild card team. And then 3 seasons of 6 or fewer wins. So he's had half of his seasons be 10 or more wins. Half of them are 6 or fewer wins. Everyone is saying that this team's biggest mistake was letting Trey Lance fool them a couple of years ago into trading up and drafting for him. I honestly think the bigger mistake is them letting Brock Purdy fool them into giving him the keys to this Lamborghini. The dude is smoke and mirrors. Go watch the tape. I am begging you to go look at what he did last year. Yes, the stats tell one story, but your eyeballs are going to tell a different story. This dude is not it. I think that he is a fraud. I think that defensive coordinators are licking their chops at the idea of ruining his life after a summer of watching his tape and scheming for him. The interior offensive line on that team is very suspect. I think that here's the thing people don't talk about. His playing success last year, his playing time happened to coincide with when CMC, Christian McCaffrey, was traded for, brought in, came around, stayed healthy. He was awesome through that whole run. What happens when Mr. Fantasy God with the historically walking, he's a walking health red flag. Like This dude is made of glass. We've forgotten that because he had one decent back half of the season in recent memory. I don't have any faith in him staying healthy this year. So like when that safety net is gone, you don't have the CMC dump off train to run the offense. What's it going to look like? I think this team's going to be mediocre. You look at their schedule, they've got a pretty easy strength of schedule based on Vegas win totals, but they've got one stretch in here. They play the Cowboys, Browns, Vikings, Bengals, Jaguars. I think they might lose all 5 of those games. I think they go 1-4 at best. So that's maybe my hottest take in here. The Niners, bad. Brock Purdy, bad.
So I'm kind of on half with you, half not with you.
Okay.
I think Sam Darnold wins the starting job midway
so
through.
Too.
But here's my thing. I think they're good. I mean, I think when you look at Sam Darnold,
so
first off,
Darnold takes over and then they're great, is what you're saying.
Okay. I agree with the Brock Purdy story was kind of an anomaly, and it was really fun. It was like
he's a cult figure at this point, man. He's got a following.
Such a story to root for. But I look at Sam Darnold, and I can't, not notice that he was a 3rd overall draft pick. He got tossed around through bad organizations.
Adam Gase developed him. That's who he had to develop with. Adam Gase.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the Jets, then the Panthers, and now he's over in San Francisco with one of the best offensive minds in the NFL, in addition to some of the best weapons in the NFL and one of the best rosters from top to bottom in an NFC that has a lot of question marks for every other team around it. I actually look at this and think this could be one of the best things that has ever happened to Sam Darnold for his football career, considering the potential and how he was viewed in the draft process, and now finally landing. It was kind of the point to the nature versus nurture. Easton, you pointed out before, he hasn't had that at the organizations he's been a part of. And I mean, they drafted Matt Corral in Carolina, and now obviously, Bryce Young, and then now you're just going to throw him back over to the 49ers. I mean, he has been bounced all over the place and has never really had time to get established somewhere. And he's only 1 year older than Kenny Pickett.
He's so young. He's like in the league for a decade, but he's so young.
I mean, you can't give up on him yet, right? And I think that this actually could be one of the best things that happened to him. And I think when 49ers fans realize what Sam Darnold's ability is compared to Brock Purdy, they're going to be like, whoa, this is great.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I almost like that.
They have the best plug and play.
Maybe they're not bad. Maybe they're bad until they start Sam Darnold and then they win the Super Bowl. Sam Darnold Super Bowl 2023. I like. It's a good storyline. It's a good script. All right, what else we got? Any more takes? We're coming to the end of the purge here, I think. But
JT, do you have one, or you got?
I have.
One? Okay.
I have 2 more here, and I got
one more too.
Yeah,
okay. I've got one more after this. So JT, let's hear it.
I'm going to just do this one because I think this one's pretty cut and dry for me. And this is just more of this team is going to be better than people expect. But I phrased it in such a way that Jordan Love does what Aaron Rodgers could not do for the Packers last season and sweeps the Lions, winning the division in the NFC North.
No, not my Lions. Boo.
I hate that.
I think Jordan Love is going to be a little better than people are expecting him to. I've watched actually a lot of his preseason tape. The connection with Christian Watson, Luke Musgrave is really good. You still have a really good running back tandem in Aaron Jones Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. That offensive line is top 5. They have a really good defense.
I'm with you that they might be good. I'm with you. I co-sign Jordan Love has been one of the most interesting people for me to watch this preseason. I got to see him once in person, watch the other two, which kind of started my intrigue with him. I saw him live the first week of preseason. I was like, oh, this cat's cooking. He's got some skill. And then I watched the other 2 games. I'm like, this connection with Christian Watson is real. I just think they're
the Packers don't even believe in him. He didn't even get his 5th year option.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's a valid counterpoint. It's a valid
counterpoint. However,
this is the take purge. All right, it doesn't have to make 100% sense, Michelle. All right.
I am getting a little emotional because I do live with a Bears fan, and the anxiety levels for week 1 are already extremely high, and I need the Bears to win for my sanity. So I would just appreciate, because we are all friends here, if you all would, get on my train. But my take is it's in the same division, not so much Packers. Justin Fields is the first ever Bears quarterback to throw for more than 4,000 yards.
Whoa. 4,000 yards for Justin Fields is maybe that would be the largest leap from one year to the next for a quarterback in the history of quarterbacks, I think. Explain yourself.
Well, and here's the big misunderstanding by people who don't actually watch their games or just kind of look at a stats sheet after a game or look at the box score, is that Justin Fields was never known as a running quarterback. When we saw him in college, like, he was never a running quarterback. He was known for connecting with his wide receivers and throwing the ball. He was never known as a running quarterback. And if people actually watched the games that he played in last year, he took a huge jump, obviously broke all these rushing yards. But when you have a star on your team, you need them to be playmakers, right?
Yep.
The reason Justin Fields was running is because he was running for his life. He had one of the worst offensive lines in the entire NFL. The guy had barely 3 seconds to even go through one progression. So yeah, he was rushing a lot because he was trying to make plays happen. So then the narrative becomes, oh, he's a running quarterback. He's like Lamar, like you don't want a running quarterback. You can never win. He can't throw. He can't pass, which was never how he was viewed before. But he also had one wide receiver that was somewhat good in Darnell Mooney. Now you have DJ Moore, which what have we seen quarterbacks do when they are afforded a top talent wide receiver in the league? We see them take that next step. I think Darnell Mooney too, as the wide receiver too, is taking another step. I think we're actually going to see Justin Fields be able to throw the football, and they were able to add, Darnell Wright
there you go.
At right tackle. I think he's going to be, solid there. But I genuinely think, in watching every one of their games last year, the amount of times that team was in a one-score game. I mean, Justin Fields went head-to-head with Tua and the Miami Dolphins, and they barely lost that game. And when you look at the two rosters, you kind of are puzzled and think, how did they do that? They did that because of Justin Fields. And I think he can do it. I think he's the real deal in Chicago, and I really do hope so for the mental health of everybody in this apartment right now.
It's crazy. I love it, but it's crazy. I mean, it is. It's crazy.
I've watched him this preseason. Like,
Screen King.
DJ Moore is
okay, but that's OC. Like, believe me, I hate the screen passes. Like, but
well, I wouldn't hold it against them if they were accurate, but they were like inaccurate screen passes that then went for touchdowns.
Like, so. I'm with you that DJ Moore is going to take Justin Fields to the next step, but I think it's because DJ Moore is athletic enough to catch the inaccurate passes of Justin Fields. Like, I want to be right because I think he's so dynamic. I just I have questions, but how
many games start to finish did you watch last year for the Bears?
Hand up, 4. I don't know.
4,
probably max. Probably 4.
There you go.
We'll see.
I will claim ignorance a little bit on this. I will.
Yeah.
And that's more of my thing. Like, just watching all of the games and like seeing him play, I think it's easy just to see the highlight reel and be like, oh, the guy can't throw. But it's like,
yeah, no, I'm with you.
We'll see.
I've got one more take to get off my chest, guys. I want to cleanse my soul of this one more thing. I think that the Cardinals aren't going to finish with the worst record in the league, even though they're actively tanking. And that's a thing that is pretty clear at this point. I think it's not going to matter. I think that the Raiders are going to finish with the worst record in football, and they're going to win the number 1 overall pick. They're going to earn it. So here's the deal. They're going to be worse than Arizona, worse than Tampa Bay, worse than Indianapolis. New England's the only other team that I considered for this because they also are they have nightmare fuel written all over them. They're easily the runt of that division. Like, they're going to get beat up on by the Jets and the Bills and the Dolphins. So that's a possibility, but I think Bill Belichick just the floor. Like, I have some trust that won't happen. Although, side take here, what if Bill Belichick gets retired, like forcibly retired this season? If it's a nightmare, possible. We'll like maybe this is the last year we see Bill Belichick. Maybe I should have made that my take, but I don't think that's going to happen. I do think that with the Raiders' strength of schedule, they have the 31st strength of schedule by a pretty sizable margin for the next worst strength of schedule. Like it's pretty much a nightmare schedule start to finish. It's a gauntlet they have to go through weeks 1 through 18. They have a quarterback made of glass. Another side take from me, I think Aiden O'Connell, the rookie backup, wins more games for the Raiders this year than Jimmy G does, because I think he gets hurt and or benched early on. He's not in that Shanahan padded room that he's been in the recent past. It's going to be way worse for him. They got a head coach that let's be honest, nobody really believes in this guy. Like I think everybody's just expecting him to be done sooner or later. 2 offensive stars that are massive trade deadline targets in Devontae and Josh Jacobs. Wouldn't shock me if either of those guys aren't on the Raiders by the end of the year. You've got no more Waller there, so there's no more tight end threat really. Hunter Renfrow, we don't like, big question mark. Who knows? Is he made of glass too? Perhaps. Offensive line still a mess. Defense still a mess. Their conference schedule alone, like I think they're going to maybe go 0-6, maybe 1-5 in their or not conference, sorry, division. I'm not sure they win more than 1 game in that division, even with the Broncos there. Wouldn't shock me if they lost all their games. So I think that they win like 2, maybe 3 games this year, maybe less, maybe just 1. I think they're going to be dumpster fire, horrible, awful, very bad.
Love that. I do think the Cardinals will be the worst
to wrap
team.
Us up here with. You say what?
I said I like that. I do think the Cardinals will be the worst, and I don't think Kyler.
Well, it's unfair because they're actively trying to be. So but if we're gonna make a spicy take that they somehow, because sometimes an incompetent team like that is so incompetent that they like, remember when the Jets blew it, couldn't get Trevor Lawrence. They were the number 1 pick, like wire to wire, weeks 1 through 16. Then they win a game against the Browns on the last play of the game.
It was like the Houston Texans this past year. Yeah, Lovie Smith, the double birds, 2-point conversion.
Yeah, although that one was intentional. I think that Lovie Smith, that was a parting gift to the city of Houston. I think that some teams just can be so. I think the Jets were so incompetent that year that they accidentally won their way out of the number 1 pick. I think that may be on the table for the Cardinals. And anybody have a ton of faith in Jonathan Gannon to be like an awesome head coach?
I also think that they'll draft a quarterback and that Kyler Murray will not be on that team.
Yeah, I think that's a very real possibility. But
clearly we're not believing in Clayton Tune Squad.
Stand
up. But my last take here to end it off is also a very contentious one, I think. Only 2 NFC East teams make it to the playoffs, and the Philadelphia Eagles are not one of them.
What?
I think Jonathan Gannon is a.
Wait, so who is it? Who are the 2 teams?
The Giants and the
Cowboys.
Okay, just making sure. All right.
I thought about it, man. I thought about Sam Howell and River. I thought about it. No. But I think people are underestimating how tough it is to get over that Super Bowl hangover of being there last year. And now having to kind of
speaking from a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
JT.
I think it's being understated that how big of a difference Shane Steichen and to a lesser extent Jonathan Gannon made for that team, and just like how Jalen Hurts worked under Shane Steichen. I think especially with a lot of these pieces in their defense leaving, the offensive line still good but getting older, like the running back room I don't think has a lot more questions than if they re-sign Miles Sanders. Like, I think there's a lot of questions with this team that people are just like overlooking because of how just potent that offense was. I'm just interested to see if the new offensive coordinator can kind of repeat that success that they had last time.
I like it.
I love it.
And then, but like the Cowboys probably have maybe the best defense in the league. I would say I think they have an argument to be made that they have a top 3 defense this year.
I'm with you.
That Giants team with Dable, another year finally paying Danny Dimes, whether they should or should not, that's different discussion, but they did. And I thought he looked decent. I know they still really don't have a lot of weapons outside of Darren Waller and Saquon Barkley, but like their team got better. So like, I think those 2 teams make another step, and maybe we see the Eagles kind of just stay where they are. And that. I'm not gonna lie. That kind of jump scared me there.
What happened in there? That was crazy.
I thought you were gonna go one step further and say that Trey Lance was the starting quarterback for the Cowboys when they make the playoffs. I'd be like, whoa.
Whew, all right, that was the first take purge. That was crazy.
That was awesome.
So, anyways, I think the Niners are going to be awesome this year, and Anthony Richardson's going to be great, and Christian Fulton's going to be a stud, among other things. Just to put that out there. So yeah, fun time. Michele, thanks for joining us and having some fun today. That was a ton of fun. Anything you got going on right now? Anybody need to pay attention? I'm sure you'll be paying attention to the Titans game going on in New Orleans this weekend, right?
Yes, I will actually be there as a fan.
Sweet,
so I'm
awesome.
excited. I haven't been to an NFL game as a fan, and
but it's been a minute.
I was last year. I went to one, but
okay.
Not a Titans one, like a Bears one in the freezing cold. So this one will be inside. Very excited. I've been doing some hosting for Tulane Athletics, Tulane football. So I will be at the Ole Miss Tulane game, top 25 matchup on Saturday. So that'll be huge. That'll be a big game. And then I hope it'd be pretty cool if Tajay Spears, he's also going to be in town. So there's that nice connection. If he'll be at the game too. But yeah, just down here in the heat, excited to see some of my fellow colleagues in New Orleans. And if any Titans fans are visiting from Nashville, it is hotter than our hot takes we just had.
Oh,
it
no.
is so hot down here. It is like 125 degrees every single day. But yeah, I've been doing stuff for Tulane. They've been a fun football team. Obviously, they're top 25 this year. So excited for Saturday. It'll be a big matchup, but it also will be at 2:30 in the afternoon. So I'll be struggling in that heat, but it'll be a good game.
Oh no, you're not going to be inside?
No.
Oh no. Yeah, dress appropriately. Can you wear a swimsuit to work? Is that allowed? I mean, honestly, that's a disaster. But hey, that's awesome. We love talking to you. We'll have you on the show again soon.
Yes, loved it, guys. Thanks for having me.
For being here with us. That's it from us today. Like, review, subscribe, all those good things. You know the drill. Help us out however you can to share the show. Make sure you're following us on social media at Hot Read Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and on X. We'll be back later this week. I'm not sure, JT, if we'll do a show between now and Thursday. At the very least, we'll be back Thursday live from BoomBozz for our first ever live show there. So excited for that. Thursday Night Football kicks off the season. Can't wait. I know everybody's excited. So for our lovely guest, Michele, and for producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. We'll talk to you later this week.